Welcome, everybody, to the Cone of Shame Veterinary Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Andy Roark. Guys, we're doing our Christmas episode here. I have my good friend, Kelsey Beth Carpenter, and she's going to interview me. She helps me with social media and with marketing, and she's just brilliant and funny. And all of the newsletters that I send out and the things that I write, they kind of go through her hands on the way out the door, and she reads them. And I often am very curious about what she thinks, and we don't necessarily talk about it that much, but every now and then she says, hey, let's do a podcast. I want to ask you about some of the stuff you've been writing recently. And the idea this time was, we're going to do a Christmas episode and kind of reflect back on some of the stuff that we've written this year, and so just sort of talk it through. And so that's what this is. Kelsey is so thoughtful and smart, and I just think the questions she asks are really, really good. This is definitely a Perspective Life episode. I hope you guys will enjoy it a lot. I really enjoyed recording with her. Let's get into it.
This is your show. We're glad you're here. We want to help you in your veterinary career. Welcome to the Cone of Shame with Dr. Andy Roark.
Welcome to the podcast, Kelsey Carpenter. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, except for I feel like I should be doing.
You want to welcome me to the podcast?
Let's take that again from the top. All right. And welcome to the podcast, everyone. I've got here today Dr. Andy Roark. Really great to have you here today, my friend.
Well, that's good to be here. I appreciate it. I love this place.
Listen, I try to do my best Andy Roark. So the next line should be, for those who don't know you.
Yeah.
That's the next one. For those who don't know, actually, I did want to give you an opportunity. A lot of times on the Dr. Andy Roark side of things, we don't talk a ton about Uncharted because we're not trying to, stuff it down people's throat by any means. But I do want to give you an opportunity as a guest on my/your podcast to tell us about, that's one of the big things you have going on is you are the founder and leader of the Uncharted Veterinary Conference and podcast, and wanted to give you a second to tell people about that in case, because they've been seeing that word around recently.
Yeah. So, okay, for those who don't know, I started a vet conference in 2017 called the Uncharted Veterinary Conference. And I am a big believer in active learning and working together and discussion and collaboration and working on case studies and things like that for learning. And so we really tried to build a conference that's all about communication and leadership and management, the soft skills of vet medicine. I wanted to have a conference for the soft skills of vet medicine. And I did not want to get lectured all the time. I wanted it to be like a collaborative thing. I was doing a lot of improv comedy at the time. And so I love that idea of let's create something great together. And it has been wonderful. It has been one of the most rewarding things in my life. The Uncharted Veterinary Podcast came out of that. And a lot of people, if you're listening to this podcast and you like podcasts, but don't know Uncharted, give it a listen. It has been a very popular podcast. It is me and practice managers Stephanie Goss and Maria Parita kind of rotate. And so it's usually me and one of them. And we take questions from the mailbag and we answer questions about hey, this thing is going on in my practice. It's driving me nuts. What do you do with this? And so that's been really wonderful. And then Uncharted is a member community. And so we've got online certificates. We've got our Leadership Essentials certificate, which is the 7 workshops that I think are required for anybody who is leading other people. We've got our conflict management certificate. We've got our online community. I do office hours every other week, and people come and just bring me whatever their wild sort of questions are in practice, and we sort them out. And we run a leadership lab. We have a practice owner community that's just for practice owners, and just a bunch of stuff like that. It's a pretty great thing. It has meant a lot to me over the years, and it is my attempt to help people have the career that they want to have in vet medicine. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the way it trickles down into the rest of the clinic, the rest of the people in veterinary medicine. It absolutely does. These are people who are very proactive people wanting to create positive change. And that affects everyone, you know. It
was funny. So we work with a group of doctors who were medical directors and regional medical directors. And we're working with a big corporate veterinary hospital group, and they track the data on all the stuff. And so we went there and they said, we want you to work for our people. And we did a 1-year program with those guys and worked with them sort of consistently and everything. And at the end of the program, comparing the people who were with us to people who didn't do our program, they were significantly more likely to retain the people that we trained, the doctors that we trained, than the doctors that we didn't. And they were significantly more likely to retain the doctors that reported to the doctors that we trained. Which I was like, that's the thing. That's what's really, really cool, is the idea that we would train these leaders and the people that report to those leaders were more likely to stay because they had a better lead. Like that made me so proud. But that, to your point, that's the trickle down, right? Is like we've shown it in data that we can train the medical leaders and not just improve their retention, but retention of people who have to have them as a boss. And I'm like, yes, I always felt that was true, but it was really great to see it in the data.
That's awesome. Well, and it's not just doctor to doctor either. I mean, we've got the team lead summit, so it's team leads to technicians, and it goes on forever. Okay, that was a wonderful intro. Good job, Andy.
Well, thank you.
And today, what we wanted to talk about was we're doing a bit of a Christmas episode. So to keep it on theme, I love a theme. We're going to do the ghosts of Christmas, past, present, and future.
All right.
And we're going to revisit some things you've written about and talked about recently. Some of my personal favorites, and I think some of your community's personal favorites. So, I am the ghost of Christmas past, and I wanted to talk to you about your recent piece that got a lot of attention, a blog post you wrote called I Was Lied to and I'm Not Doing Very Well, which was quite the title. I mean, I think we've all said that at some point in our lives.
Yeah, I was like, I was trying to come up with a title for this. And also, like, it's the subject line of the email that goes out. For those who don't know, I have a newsletter that goes out every Friday, and I try to write every single week. It's a challenge I made for myself. And so I'm always thinking about what is the subject line that people will click on and open up. And I was lied to and I'm not doing very well. That's how I was feeling. That was how I was feeling in my heart.
The alternative title was Fergie Got Me.
Yes.
One. But anyways, the concept of the blog post, and I definitely recommend people read it, of course, is you were lied to about this concept of the joyful departure with your oldest daughter going to college and how it should be so exciting and such a fun time, and how there were actually
going to be. I thought that people had told me, they're like, oh, you're going to be so ready for your teenage daughter to go. Yep. Like, it will be time for her to leave. And I was like, I am not having that experience.
No, not at all. But what I wanted to ask you about in regards to that is that this is, I totally related to this piece, because this is something I experience all the time where my expectations do not meet reality. It's You've mentioned before, how does the phrase go? If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, kind of thing, right?
That's one of my favorites, yeah.
So my question for you is, I do this all the time. I ruminate on, I expected it to go this way and it went a completely different way. Or at times I feel like I set myself up for failure, expecting something, and then it goes a different way. And my question to you is, how do you handle that? So how do you handle it in a situation where you're expecting to be so happy and joyful, and then you start getting these, intermingling feelings of sadness? Where do you go from there?
Yeah. Oh, man. One of the things I have tried in my life to do is to get better at controlling my expectations. Just because it happens again and again and again. And like, it's so sad. Like one of the main things I try to teach people in our courses is people don't get upset about what they get. They get upset about the difference between what they got and what they expected to get.
Absolutely.
And that's true with the staff at the vet clinic. You know what I mean? Like, there are some people who they have expectations of what the day at work is going to be like. And then when it's busier than that, they're wildly unhappy. And other people expect like, oh, today is going to be so busy. And they show up and they go, that wasn't that bad. And the truth is there's going to be two people having the exact same day. But it's just about that sort of expectation. The same thing is true with the clients. It's funny, the clients do not care if you call them the next morning with the blood work results. What they care is, when do they expect for you to call them? And then how did you do compared to when they expected you to call? And so this stuff just repeats again and again. And so I have tried very much to change how I think about sort of the future in general, and to be excited. I made this big investment a couple weeks ago. And so my youngest daughter is 14, and she has become a basketball fanatic. Like, she is really into NBA basketball. I think there's kids at schools. There might be boys involved. Like, I'm not sure. But she has become an NBA fanatic. And her favorite team is the Los Angeles Lakers. And for those people who are not basketball fanatics, there's a couple of really great players on the LA Lakers. But the most famous one is LeBron James. And so LeBron James plays for the LA Lakers. And I went and I got us 2 tickets to see the Lakers play in Atlanta. So it's a bit of a haul. It's a little bit of a trip down to Atlanta, but not bad. But I was like, this is going to be the gift.
Oh,
and I got those tickets, and LeBron got injured.
Oh, no.
He got, yes, 100%. LeBron got injured. And also Hannah's second favorite player, Austin Reeves, also got injured.
No.
And so, yes. And so we ended up and we went to Atlanta and we saw the Lakers without LeBron, which was like a bummer. And I was there, right? And in this moment, I had I saw it at the time. I was like, how I choose to feel about this is totally up to me. And I could be really upset that I spent a lot of money. Like, it was an investment. I was like, this is going to be the big gift. Like, and the main draw wasn't here. No, that wasn't his fault. He was injured. Nobody wanted that. But still, you go, ugh. I had to get my head around that exact thing. So there I am. And I'm like driving to Atlanta. And I know this is how it is. And it's funny. My daughter was like, this is going to be amazing. We get to see the Lakers play and we get to do this together and it's going to be so great and we're going to take tons of pictures. And like, that's what she said. And I was like, yes, we are. And that was the most recent like readjustment of expectations of, like, I'm going to choose how I feel about this. And so anyway, I don't know that I have a trick other than to recognize it and just be like, what story am I telling myself here? And how can I reframe this in my own mind? So the other part of it is, this kind of goes with saying goodbye to my daughter when she goes off to college and things. There's that realization that you cannot have really wonderful experiences without having hardships. Like, you just can't. And so it's only sad for me that my daughter is going to college because we have been so blessed to have this wonderful relationship. Again, there's a world where I'm like, get out of here, please. I'm glad that that's not my world. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm glad that I don't have that. It's the same thing. I talk about this in another article that I wrote, but it's kind of how I feel about euthanasia, where it is sad that we put pets to sleep, but it's wonderful that it's sad because people are so attached to their pets. They got so much out of that relationship and it brought so much joy that they're devastated when it's over. And you can't have that joy, that attachment, that love, and then be like, all right, that's over. Like, they don't work. And so anyway, as we sort of start to think about those things about, this is not what I thought it was going to be, I think trying to get philosophic about that and then try to frame up your expectations and say, how was I lucky here? How could I look at this to be a positive thing?
I love that. I very much relate to the expectation, setting the expectation differently as well. I don't mean to brag, but my boyfriend is currently adding an extension to his home so I can move in.
Very nice.
I realized some of the anxiety I was feeling around it was I didn't have like a timeline in my head of when this was going to be completed. And it was really getting to me. And so I finally said to him, I said, it would really help me if you could think about how long this project's going to take.
Yes.
And then whatever you think the end of that timeline is, add 3 months to it and tell me that date.
Yeah,
so that then if you're done early, I'll be double thrilled.
Yeah.
But it's
Super
all
smart.
about that expectation.
Yeah, it's funny because there is a balance, right? Of like, if you set expectations too high, then you feel like, oh, I set myself up for disappointment. At the same time, the reason that I bought those tickets to the Lakers is because we had to buy them way in advance. I have learned that having something that I'm looking forward to is awesome. And like, Hannah talked about the Lakers game for weeks, like 6 weeks. She was like, we're going to see the Lakers next month. Yeah. And it was something that we talked about it and we looked forward to it. And I have not done that enough in my life. Yes. I have not booked the vacation to look forward to. I have gone long periods of being happy at my job. Don't get me wrong. I'm not miserable. I like what I do. I enjoy my days. But there is something great for being able to look ahead and be like, this is going to be really good. I'm looking forward to this. And so that's something that I want to do more of as well.
I read a book called Hardwiring Happiness, and it was all about how to lean further into the happiness instead of the negative. And it talked about doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
The lead up, really lean into the excitement. And then during the event, really be happy. And then after the event, look at all your pictures. Talk about, remember when this happened, really just lean into that.
It's funny that you say that. I have the last couple of days, I have finally been doing my picture purge that I have been putting off forever, of like going through the pictures on my phone and they link up with my computer, but like deleting the majority of them. I want to keep, if I've got 7 photos of the same thing, I'm picking one. I'm picking the best one and I'm deleting the rest of them. And then that way, when I look through my phone, if there's a pile of photos, I don't enjoy them. But if there's one photo, I do that. The other thing I started doing was putting notes in the photo app. Is like you can open a photo up and put a little and put notes in it. And I started saying, this is what was going on. This is why I was here.
Oh, I love
Just
it.
really short stuff. So one, I can search my photos, but also when I go back, I can look at them. So I've got pictures of me and Hannah at the Hawks Stadium. And if you click on it, there's a note that said, we went to see the Lakers and this is what happened. And we ate at this barbecue restaurant outside the stadium. And I just make a quick note to myself.
Yeah.
But as long as I have that photo and when I click on it, the little attached note comes up. It's freaking great. And so I agree with you. It's that holding on to the thing afterwards and like, it's funny. You can frame things up in your mind. I learned this years ago. So we had a friend, my wife and I had this friend. She was very funny, but it was a cynical funny. You know what I'm talking about? Kind of like that acidic
That's my favorite
sort of funny.
type. Yes.
Yeah. And so she was very funny. But the problem was, if you asked her what happened yesterday, she would tell you it was awful and laugh about it. But like everything was bad or not. And at one point I caught myself having that, like reflecting back in that same tone.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second. And then I heard my wife do the same thing. And I said, I caught myself doing this earlier and I just heard you do it. Is this a bad habit? Are we getting a bad habit? And it was like, yes. You know what I mean? Like we were just building the habit of, oh, that was so dumb.
Yeah.
Oh, those people were so annoying. Oh, that was such a headache. And it's like, the thing is over. It changes nothing to be negative about it. And it sounds bananas, but you really do choose how you remember things. And so I'm like, I'm going to brainwash myself. I'm going to 100% remember things being better than they were. Because why wouldn't I? Like at the end of my life, I want to remember having a great life. That's what I want.
You're like, if anyone's going to gaslight me, it's going to be me.
I'm going to gaslight myself 100%. Exactly right.
Well, okay, speaking of the negative, on this same concept of like sort of expectation and reality, this was one of the things I used to struggle with in the clinic sometimes is when, I expect we treated this patient, he did so well, he gets to go home with his family, and now the family's upset about the bill. Or I go in with some difficult news, but some promising, treatment plan, and they're mad at me because, it's an emotional experience, right? And I used to ruminate on that and think about, if only I had said this differently, if only I had done this differently, if only they had been in a different frame of mind, how this same concept of expectation, do you think you can apply that to the exam room similarly in that you just set the expectation differently for yourself, or how do you handle that?
It's a little bit that. Man, I was talking to this guy just a couple days ago and he told me the story. So he had a cat in for surgery. And they double dosed the cat on analgesia during recovery. And the cat was fine. It was not a toxic dose. They didn't have to reverse it. You know what I mean? They just, the cat was supposed to get, they were supposed to get one, slowly of buprenex, and they got two. Well, something like that, right? They were spread apart a little bit. And he said, we went ahead and we told the pet owners that this had happened just so they would know. And they have now demanded to not pay for anything. Not the surgery, not the procedure, not anything. And they are being really mean about it. And there's that. And so he went ahead and he talked to some other doctors, and they all had stories of things that happened in a vet clinic that no one ever told the pet owner about. And he was saying, a lot of times these people, they didn't say anything. And the pet owners thought that they were heroes. They thought that they were wonderful. They were thrilled. And I told people exactly what happened and was transparent and honest, and now they're mad at me. And I sat with that for a little bit and I thought about it. And my belief is you should not feel good about the way that people respond. You should feel good about the way that you behave. And the guy that I was talking to me, he did the right thing. And the fact that the people were jerks does not change the fact that doing the right thing is the right thing to do. And I think it takes some internal fortitude to look at the world that way, but I believe that is true. And if you can get away with something and the person is happy, you still got away with something. You still did not, you still did not do the thing that's going to help you look in the mirror and feel good. There's a stain on your soul. It's a small one, but it is there. And if you're going to live 75, 100 years on this earth, I don't know. I don't want my soul to I want to keep my soul as clean as I can. And so it's kind of that. And so we do the right thing to do the right thing. And so when you say, I went in and I'm optimistic because we've made this plan and these people are upset, it doesn't change the fact that you have worked hard to make the best plan that you can and to advocate for that pet. And so I really think that part of it is about expectations. I think one of the big things is we have to be very careful about assigning our own happiness to the responses that people give to us. And just, I don't think it's a healthy way to look at the world. I think that for me, the way to be happy, the way to think about those things is to understand who you are as a person and what your values are. And say, was I honest? Was I kind? Did I advocate for the patient? Did I do what I genuinely thought was best for both the patient and their owners? And if the answer to that is yes, then that's all there is to it. Did I communicate this in the best way that I know how to communicate it? And if the answer is yes, then you did your best and you should feel good about that. I would be curious if there were other ways I could have done it differently that I didn't think of. I would like to get better, but I'm not going to beat myself up. And it's funny, there's people who, they really just wallow around in that misery. They're like, those people got mad and I must have done something wrong. And I would say, well, what can you do to figure out if you did something wrong? Or what can you do to adjust what you do differently next time? And if you have an answer to that, then okay, great. We've got a plan for next time. Let's put this down and go on.
Yes.
And if you don't have an answer, then, sometimes they go, well, could you ask for advice? Is there someone else you could say, hey, this is what I did. How does that sound to you? And be clear. I'm not looking for validation. I genuinely want to know if I could have said this a different way. But boy, there's not many people who have that sort of intestinal fortitude to say to someone, I would like feedback because I would like to get better. But I really do think that's the path to a happier life. So anyway, I think it's something around that expectation. But I really think, Kelsey, I think the sort of the ghost of Christmas present for me is around internal validation.
Yes.
And again, I think the world's getting to be a little bit of a nastier place. I think people are more rude to each other than they used to be. There's less civility in the world than there used to be. People are more likely to say things online than they ever used to be. And I don't want to harden my heart, but I think it's probably healthy for me to decide that I am capable of validating myself, and I can look at my own internal compass and my own values and kind of get a picture of, did I think I did the right thing? And if so, I'm just going to try not to pay too much attention to what the reaction of others people's were beyond trying to help their pet.
I love that answer. And I think for me, that's what I get stuck on. I need that combination of finding the peace with what did happen.
Yes.
So did I do the best I could? Was I honest? Was I truthful? But then also that forward-facing piece of, was there anything I could work on? And it gives you something to then focus your brain on in a more positive. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's one of my favorite sayings is action over anxiety.
Yes.
And I'm just a big believer in action over anxiety. And so people just chew their fingernails and go, oh, this person's going to get mad at me. I was like, okay, what can we do right now to reduce the chances of that happening? It's something around communication. Do you want to role play this conversation? Do you want to bounce what you're going to say off of me? Do you want to do things to actually reduce the chances of them getting mad at you? Then let's do that, because that will make you feel better.
Yes. I love that. All right. Now, as the ghost of Christmas present, I wanted to talk to you about a recent article I also really enjoyed that you wrote called What Kind of 2026 Do You Want to Have? And at first, when I heard that title, I thought, Andy's getting ahead of himself. Because I think this was a month ago you wrote this. I thought, Andy is ready to wrap up 2025, apparently. But actually, it was a really great, you talking it about how work-life balance has a 10-week lag time, roughly. And I loved that concept. You also wrote another piece recently called Stopping Does Not Equal Failure, and how it's not all about the end game. It's not all about the next thing being bigger or better. And the common theme in both of these pieces seem to be a lot around sort of letting go of things, freeing yourself up to focus on the things you really want to do.
Yeah.
And I came out of both of these pieces very curious about how you learned this lesson about how important the letting go is, how important it is to free yourself up for the things you genuinely want to do. I'm wondering if there was anything specific you ever did have to kind of toil with letting go of, and what it did allow you to do ultimately.
So there's sort of two pieces there in my mind that kind of came together over time. The first one is I figured out early in my career this is still the best piece of advice I can give to anybody for having a great career, and in vet medicine at least, but probably in other industries, I think, but it's meant the most to me. The whole key that I found is you should figure out what you're good at and what you like to do, and you should figure out how to do more of it. And you should figure out what you're not good at or what you don't like to do, and you should figure out how to do less of it. And then just keep repeating that ad nauseum. And I think that is the key. And it's sort of like, if you're like listening to this and thinking and you say, I love doing surgery, I love it, I would say, why don't you start figuring out how to do more surgery? And if you're like, I don't like talking to clients, I like doing surgery. There are practices that would love to have a surgeon that largely stayed in the back and just cut cases. Those clinics exist. Can you find them? I don't know, but they're definitely out there. It is possible if you said, all I want to do is surgery, I love it. There's advanced training. There are things, some of the deep dive wet lab skill shop to grow your skills. Man, lean into that stuff and get better and better at surgery. Get so good at surgery that the clinic doesn't want to have you seeing appointments. So like be so good that they want you to do the thing that you're good at. You can make that happen. And so anyway, figure out what you love to do and what you're good at and figure out how to do more of it. And then the same thing on the other side is the things that you don't like to do. How do I do less of this? And just make those adjustments. And I figured that out. I figured that out over time. I mean, early in my career, it was easy because I was in practice full time. And I was in practice full time and I was commuting to the practice and I had little kids that were in daycare and daycare was expensive. And so I was starting to write more. And I started to do some more consulting with Clinicians Brief and Brief Media. And then they were working with NAVC and things like that. And I started to get more opportunities. And ultimately, I filled up my day off and I was filling up my sort of nights and working with this. But I really love that stuff. And so the next step for me was I waited until the clinic kind of geared down. It was around the holidays and things were kind of slow. And, the vets were kind of standing around a bit. And I went to the practice owner and I said, hey, look, you guys are kind of slow. I've got this other work that I'm really excited about and it's taking a lot of time. How about I quit? I was working 4.5 days a week. Why don't I go to 3.5 days a week and I can do this other work and it will cut my pay down to mirror the reduction hours. And they were like, yeah, that's great. That works for us. And I practiced that way for a long time. I was 3.5 days a week in the clinic and then, doing a day and a half of the other work that I did. But it was that adjusting. I'd say another time I did it was I was traveling. I was speaking a lot. In like 2016, my kids were 8 and 5 years old. And I was gone 130 days. I was traveling. I was all on the road, going to conferences and doing work and stuff. And at the end of the year, I was not happy. I was burned out. I was tired. It was definitely hard on my wife to be basically a single mom a third of the time. Yeah. And she works a full time. She's got a full time job. And so I was hard. And that was a thing where that was just the honest conversation of, hey, I don't think this is working that well. And she was like, I agree. And I said, I'm gonna fix this. And so then it was trying to figure out, how do I stop doing these things? Like, how do I step back from these things? The second part of this was, I'm doing this thing, I'm working really hard, but I've got to cut it down, right? This travel is not working for me. And so I'm one of those people who, like, work ethic is like one of my core values. And it's always been for me, if somebody calls you and they give you an opportunity, you say yes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, say yes, because you don't know if they'll call you again. And it's that way in practice, right? Like, that's a classic vet mentality of, if you get the call, you don't know they'll call you again. To take the job, do the work, make the difference. But I was just covered up. And so first thing I did is I thought about it a lot. I called my dad, who was a surgeon, a small town surgeon for humans. And I said to him, hey, when you got really busy and the patients were coming in, how did you say no, thank you? Like, I need to do less of this. And he said, I never figured it out. He said it would get really quiet and I would go nuts and be like, we need to get patients in here. And then the patients come rolling in and he'd be like, we need to turn these patients away. But he never would. But he was always, his whole career, it was you fret when they don't come in and then you panic when they do and then you just keep going. And so I definitely understood that, but I was like, this doesn't feel sustainable for me. And also, like, with that just get it done work ethic and mentality, like, I understand where he's coming from, and that's what had been modeled for me. And so I was stuck. It still didn't make sense. And so I kicked around for a while. And then one day I called Marty Becker, who is the founder of Fear Free. And I said to Marty, I was like, look, I'm really struggling with this. I want to help people. I want to be available. I want to be able to do the work that I'm excited about, but also, like, I'm burning the candle at both ends, and this is really hard. And he told me, he said, this was years ago, but he said, I take about 3 months of the year off. And he said, the way I do it is, I go through at the beginning of the year before anybody asks me to do anything. And I put the time on my calendar that I want to be off. And I just put it down. And then if people call and they need me to do things, I can always move those blocks around. So if I'm like planning to be off this week and someone says, Marty, we really need you, I'll move that time off to the next week and keep it. But ultimately what happens is the requirements for me, they fill in until I can't move those blocks anymore. I won't delete them. I'll move them, but ultimately the calendar gets so full I can't move them anymore. And so I took that, and then what I started to do, and I had never done this before, I actually went ahead and put some vacation time on my calendar a year beforehand. And I was like, this is what I'm going to be off. And if it lined up with the kids' spring break, marked as that, and that's what it was. I'm taking this. But the problem, Kelsey, that I had most of my life was I wanted to work hard, and I was trying to be a good provider for my family. And, and I was kind of living in fear of the wheels falling off, you know what I mean? And nobody bringing their pets to me anymore for strange reasons or whatever. And this was sort of a new idea. But I had gone years without taking a vacation prior to that. And when my kids were young, it was a hassle to go places, and we just didn't take time off. And I would always be working. And then when I needed a vacation, I would look around, and I was already booked out for the next 3 or 4 weeks. And there was just never that off ramp. And what I found was that setting the time at the beginning of the year and saying, I am going to be off, that actually made it happen. And so the point for me was figure out what you love to do and what you don't want to do. And then also you've got to take care of yourself and schedule yourself so that you can have some time to either to rest and recharge or to try some other things, to do some projects that are away from work or things like that. And so anyway, I started with that. And someone pointed out to me a couple of months ago, they were like, this is just paying yourself first. And there's the classic advice of you should pay yourself first. Before you buy those concert tickets, you should do a deposit into your Roth IRA or your 401k or your savings account or your rainy day fund, pay off your credit card debt, whatever it is. You should pay yourself first. And that always made sense to me with finance. But I think that's true with time too, Kelsey. I think that when I say work-life balance happened 3 months ago,
right,
what I mean was that was the time that you could have looked ahead to now before anything was scheduled and said, I'm going to be off that day.
Yep.
Like that's when you could have done it. And so it's funny. Yeah, you're right. It's like in October, I was like, it's time to start talking about 2026.
Right.
And people are like, you're out of your mind. And I'm like, no, you could basically you can put anything on your calendar you want in 2026 right now because it's blank. It's probably wide open. And like pick the days off you want, just do it. But the biggest thing for me is in both of these things, you've got to be intentional. Mm-hmm. You decide, I am going to go watch the LA Lakers play in 10 weeks. I am taking the day off. I'm buying those tickets. And it doesn't matter if LeBron James is playing or not, because we are going to have that experience and I'm going to look forward to it. And then I'm going to remember it fondly, and I'm going to be glad that I did it. And I think that's probably the key to a good life.
I love that. I saw this video on Instagram recently. I wish I remembered the person's name, but it was intended for sort of a neurodivergent audience, especially people with ADHD who get very excited about new projects and new opportunities. And the advice was start with no. And I have been well, I loved it because I'm such a people pleaser. I want my initial instinct is to say yes and then make it work. I love the concept of start with no, sit with it. How does that feel? If you don't in a day feel upset that you missed that thing, leave it at no.
That's good.
I love that advice. But moving on to the ghost of Christmas to come. You made a reference that I loved in 2 recent podcasts. You had a recent episode with Dr. Gary Marshall. You guys were talking about building connections and mentorship. You also had a really great episode with Dr. Marie Holloway-Chuck talking about sort of changing career focus. And in those episodes, you brought up this concept you had heard about of asking these 2 questions, which are, what would you do if no one cared? And what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I wanted to put you on the spot and turn those questions around because the curiosity is killing the Kelsey of what would Andy Roark do if no one cared or if you weren't afraid?
Oh, man, there's a couple of things. If no one cared, I practice one day a week right now. And I really like when I could work Tuesday and Thursday. I thought that was really, because you could do your own callbacks and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think the world is kind of crazy right now. And I think I really like practice because it's just, it's things I can fix and they kind of roll in. And so it's trying to squeeze things in and there's just not enough time in the days. And I know that probably sounds wild to people. I would like to get back into practice a little bit more than I am now. And again, I can't figure out how to kind of make it happen. And I haven't been able to push myself to put it on the calendar. I don't know that I can juggle everything. So that's part of it. I'll tell you this because you'll get a kick out of it. But you know how the last couple of years for Halloween at the Dr. Andy Roark shop, I've been writing scary stories on Halloween. I think I would write a fiction horror book. I think that I would do that. But every time I start to think about it, I think about all the people who read like super happy, Andy talking about his daughter going off to school and being like, what is this weirdness, and oh my God, I just imagine like every time I look at Stephen King, I'm like, what is in your head? And then I don't want people to think that about me. But I have had that thought of like, I would write a horror book, I think. That's just pure fiction. It would either have nothing to do with vet medicine or it would have a lot to do with vet medicine. I think that might be worth, but I don't think there's any way that goes well for me, but I think that would be a thing that I could get excited about, but I can't see a path to it. If you ever read a really great and kind of funny horror book that seems to center on vet medicine, and it's from some veterinarian that you can't find on the internet.
From Dr. Randy Roark. Yeah, there we go.
Exactly right.
Like, who's this ghostwriter?
Dr. Randy Roark. He doesn't exist online, but there it is. That could be.
I would purchase and read that. You should not have said this out loud and out for the entire internet, because I will fully hold you to that. I'm a big horror and thriller reader. I would love to read that.
I write that stuff for Thanksgiving, and I just think it's a fun challenge. It's something neat, and it's not for anybody. It doesn't help anything. It's just straight up, it's just child's play. It's just imagination and trying to make something that grabs people's attention and is interesting to them. And like, I do love that, but it's not what people expect from me, I don't think. And I think it would be kind of confusing with the other things that I do.
I did tell you that last one you wrote for Halloween, my mother reached out to me concerned that it was a true story that you had really.
See, that's what I mean. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Is people be like, Andy's really gone off the...
Yeah.
He's gone off the... I got 2 emails that were very nice. They were like, what happened? Like, what? Yeah. Why? Because it sort of ends abruptly, and they were like,
I need to know.
Where is the rest of this? And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. It's neat that people be interested in that.
Yeah. I have to share with you quickly that there was something I was very afraid of doing that your Cone of Shame podcast recently motivated me to do.
Is it moving with your boyfriend?
No.
Who's building a space for you?
I have to stop saying, I find every opportunity to say, so my boyfriend's building me a house. But no, it was, you had 2 recent episodes that I absolutely loved. One was with the ASPCA, and they had created this new center in an area of New York for canine victims of abuse and neglect. I was so inspired by that. And then also a bit before that, you had an episode with Hills, and it was discussing the state of shelter pet adoption report.
Yeah.
And both of those I was so inspired by, like just all of the efforts from all these directions that are going into shelter medicine, rescue, all these things, right? And so I was very scared, but I finally took the leap, and I am now volunteering at my local animal shelter.
Hey, good for you.
I know. It's only once a week for 2 hours, because that's what my body can handle. But
well, start with no, you know what I mean? It's
exactly.
Like, just start for 2 hours into it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Just wanted to drop that in there, because I think there's a lot of people out there doing things like podcasts and posts online, and they really can have an effect in the real world. And definitely the Cone of Shame has done that.
Well, that is great to hear. It's just, as I've gotten older, I really feel like that type of volunteer work and that type of contributing to the community, I think that stuff really matters in a way that people don't appreciate or don't understand. And so anyway, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on your podcast today, Dr. Andy Roark. Where can people find you?
They can find me here. If you're listening to this podcast, you've already found me. You just stay here
on the podcast, and in the future in an upcoming horror novel.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, we'll see. Now I've said it out loud. I don't know if I made it better or worse. We'll see. People are like, every time they read something really strange, they're like, I wonder if Andy wrote that.
Was this Andy? Yeah, exactly. I'm going to start doing that. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this special Christmas-themed episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed getting to hear a little more behind the scenes from Dr. Roark like I did.
Thanks, Kelsey. Thanks, everybody. And that's what we got. Guys, thanks for being here. Thanks to Kelsey for putting together a fantastic interview and some really great questions, and thanks for always reading my stuff, buddy, and for asking me about it. It means a lot. So thanks for being here. Happy holidays to you guys. Take care of yourselves. I hope you have a wonderful end of your year and a fantastic 2026. Be well. Bye.